Never work. Tonight on the Daily Wrap, same-sex marriage now legal in all 50 states as an historic Supreme Court ruling, but not everyone is happy with the decision. We'll talk with Pastor Rick Scarborough and professor at George Mason University, Frank Buckley. And Bernie Sanders is closing in on Hillary Clinton. Should she be worried? Plus, breaking news regarding one of the escapees from a New York correctional facility. We'll tell you what that's all about and more. This is the Daily Wrap, live from New York City. And welcome to the show, everybody. Tonight, of course, joined, as always, by Rick Unger, Sirius XM. Yeah. Another good day for you.
Big day today,
big
wasn't it?
Big week for liberals, isn't it?
Big week for the country.
For the country, okay.
Right, Amy?
It was a big week for the country.
Can I introduce you first?
Oh,
yes.
Okay. She is from the Blaze TV. She's a news anchor and also a former speechwriter for former Senate Majority Leader Bill Frist. She is Amy Holmes, and we'll get your opinion on the week in just a moment.
All right.
Okay. And finally, we have the host of Close Encounter, Lisa Janovitz, is back with the glasses tonight. Always keeps us guessing with the branding. All right, let's get right to the Daily Download. And before we get to the Supreme Court ruling, we have breaking news regarding those two escaped prisoners from an upstate New York prison. After 3 weeks on the run, one of the fugitives, Richard Matt, has been shot and killed by police just hours ago near the Canadian border. Police are still chasing David Sweat. We will update you as information becomes available.
This morning, the Supreme Court recognized that the Constitution guarantees marriage equality. In doing so, they've reaffirmed that all Americans are entitled to the equal protection of the law. That all people should be treated equally, regardless of who they are or who they love.
Supreme Court dropping another bombshell ruling today. Gay marriage now legal in all 50 states. In a 5-4 ruling, Justice Anthony Kennedy wrote, "No union is more profound than marriage, for it embodies the highest ideals of love, fidelity, devotion, sacrifice, and family. In forming a marital union, two people become something greater than once they were." That's from Kennedy. Chief Justice John Roberts, who wrote the dissent, said of those supporters of gay marriage, "Celebrate the opportunity for a new expression of a commitment to a partner. Celebrate the availability of new benefits. But do not celebrate the Constitution. It had nothing to do with it." Okay, so, by the way, Justice Antonin Scalia, who's had quite a week as far as dissents are concerned, certainly on fire lately with his dissents, particularly of the Obamacare ruling, said of today's ruling, when we quote, "The opinion is couched in a style that is pretentious as its content is egotistic. Of course, the opinion's showy profundities are often profoundly incoherent." Okay, Rick, you said they'd split the baby, and apparently...
I missed on this one.
Yeah.
I did. You know, I destroyed my record of perfection. What are you going to do? I have to tell you, I was a little bit surprised. I don't think you can call it a bombshell, because I think most were expecting what we got. I had actually thought, particularly when they released the Obamacare decision before, that what we were going to see is they would back up the equal protection argument and say if one state allows gay marriage, another state must recognize that state. What I didn't necessarily expect them to do was to say that you have a constitutional right to marry if you're gay. That was the bit of a surprise. It's a surprise I welcome, I have to say, because I think they're right. I think it's funny we picked a part of Scalia's dissent that was really one of the nicer things he had to say. It was somewhat remarkable even for him.
I was really surprised actually by Chief Justice Roberts on the gay marriage ruling, saying that this was, you know, straight up legislative action by the court, when that seemed to be precisely what he did with Obamacare. Like, all of a sudden he opposes legislating from the bench when it comes to gay marriage, but in Obamacare I think that clearly was the case. I am a supporter of gay marriage, and like Rick, I thought it was always problematic that a couple could be legally married in one state and then that marriage not be recognized in another. I'm not a constitutional scholar, but I do appreciate legal scholars who've come out against this decision, not because of its result, but because of the manner, the means.
Lisa?
I think, and I'm also not, I am for gay marriage. However, I'm also very concerned about the whole issue of religious liberty, religious freedom. And I think that that is going to be something that we're going to hear a lot about. Because I don't know how that could not intersect. I know that according to the ruling, it is saying that if you sincerely have religious objections, you will not be forced, to comply. But there are so many gray areas, not just including churches, but religious schools. Sure. If they do not want to have teachers that are, have same-sex marriages, there are going to be a number of issues where this is going to come up, and that's where we're going to see.
If you want to know how they can be brought together, I suggest read my column in Forbes.com today, because I discussed just this issue. Let's bring in our guest.
Absolutely. Joining us now from Washington, D.C. is Professor Frank Buckley of George Mason University. Professor, thanks for coming on. What did you make of the Supreme Court ruling today? Were you surprised or about what you were expecting?
I was surprised because I didn't think it was necessary. I thought that if you had full faith and credit, and if I'm in Virginia and a same-sex couple wants to get married, they go to Maryland, that's not exactly a big deal. Or worst case scenario, they go up to Niagara Falls for a honeymoon. How bad is that? So I thought it was kind of unnecessary. But the greater concern, as was mentioned, is what does this do to religious institutions? And that's a real problem. You guys are all in favor of gay marriage. I have to confess, I'm bored by it. It really doesn't bother me all that much one way or the other. But I do like the idea of freedom of association, and I think that religious colleges should be able to do whatever they want and not be penalized. But you can expect that the administration will probably want to do so. Expect that you will see the IRS challenging tax-exempt status for religious institutions. But on the other hand, when I read Kennedy's decision, I felt a little better about that because he went out of his way to make a couple of points. One is it's two people only, it's not plural marriages. And the other is he was very strong on the subject of religious freedom. And there have been a lot of cases recently where 9-zip, the court has defended religious freedom against the administration. That's this court, but nevertheless, for the short term at least, I would not expect a great deal of change.
Professor Buckley, there's something you said that I found a bit surprising, aside from being bored with it, which maybe I can appreciate, but you said that you didn't think it was necessary. If, in fact, the Supreme Court got this right and that actual constitutional rights, setting aside the equal protection argument, were at stake here, isn't protecting the rights of Americans always necessary?
No.
Really?
Depends how you define rights. If you define rights your way, then you say you won the battle, but I don't see it that way.
Well, I wasn't talking about a battle. Wait, let me ask the question again. Isn't it always important to protect the rights, whether you agree that it should be a right or not? Aren't American rights granted under the Constitution always important? I'm a little shocked you would say no.
You're begging the question, aren't you? You're saying, I've got my definition of rights, and you better sign on to it. And here's your problem.
I'm saying it's the court that decides that.
Here's your problem. Here's your problem. The problem with respect to constitutional rights is that it really defines who we are as Americans. We don't have a national language really much anymore. We don't have a national literature to speak of. We don't have a national religion. We have the Declaration. We have the Constitution. And if you're on the wrong side of the Constitution, then there's something wrong with you and you are slightly less than an American. And gosh, that sounded like what you just said.
Professor Amy Holmes here, and only 30 seconds left, but what about the question of free expression? And I'm talking about, folks who make wedding cakes, wedding photographers. Will this decision impact their religious freedom to say, I don't agree with gay marriage, I don't want to use my talents to promote it?
Yes and no. I think ultimately the Supreme Court will defend their right, but only after years of protracted legal battles, which we can expect to begin shortly. And you know what? The process is the punishment.
Professor, it's Rick Unger again. Since you did say that I was being un-American, do you mind terribly if I ask you what you teach over at George Mason Law?
Oh, sure. I teach a course on the framers, and I teach a course on contract law. And by the way, speaking of Americanism, I only became an American last year.
What's that?
I only became an American last
well,
year.
I only became an American 64 years ago, which might explain why I'm apparently un-American. But
No,
go ahead,
no. I
Joe.
said you were calling me un-American.
No, I certainly wasn't. I wouldn't do that, even if you had been an American longer than just last year.
And gentlemen, we'll have to leave it there. Frank, I love the hat, by the way. That is tremendous. So thanks
Cool,
for joining us from George Mason. We really appreciate it. Coming up next, we'll dive further into this historic ruling. Stay right here. So,
You said this is about who you love. Is it? Because now it must stop. Now you're on equal footing. Now are you going to say, but I want to crush you and your rights? And that is what's coming. Our churches had better wake up because game is on now.
a lot of people wearing white hats today. Anyway, welcome back to the Daily Wrap. We want to hear from you, by the way. Go to Newsmax.com, NewsmaxTV.com/comments, and let us know what you think about the SCOTUS ruling today. Welcome back to the show. I'm Joe Concha, joined by my co-host, Rick Unger, and filling out the panel we have Amy Holmes, Lisa Jendovitz. Okay, that was, of course, Glenn Beck on the Blaze TV, commenting on today's Supreme Court ruling allowing gay marriage to be the law of the land. Mr. Beck, not surprisingly, feels this ruling will open the door to churches and religious schools coming under attack for not being accepting of same-sex marriage. As a matter of fact, in Justice Roberts' dissent, he writes, hard questions arise when people of faith exercise religion in ways that may be seen to conflict with the new right to same-sex marriage when, for example, a religious college provides married student housing only to opposite-sex married couples, or a religious adoption agency declines to place children with same-sex married couples. Okay, we're joined now by Pastor Rick Scarborough. He is president of Vision America Action, a nonprofit group that's mission is to inform, encourage, and mobilize pastors and their congregations to be proactive in restoring Judeo-Christian values to the moral and civic framework in their community, states, and our nation. Dr. Scarborough, welcome to the show. First question, we've been asking this a lot lately. Did the ruling surprise you?
Unfortunately, it did not. This is exactly what we expected. I was even believing that it would be 6-3. So we were expecting this. It doesn't bring joy to say that, but it was not a surprise.
Rick?
Pastor, you know, what we just saw on the screen with respect to Justice Roberts' dissent, I found profoundly disturbing. I'm wondering how you feel about it. Since the day our Constitution was ratified, literally, we have had, quote, hard questions that arose out of every right that's given to us in the Constitution, out of every amendment. You would be really hard-pressed not to find an area of our Constitution that has not had to be examined by the Supreme Court because of hard questions that are raised. That doesn't seem to me to be a valid reason not to acknowledge a right that the Constitution grants to Americans. Does it to you?
Well, no, but you and I might see differently on the idea of if you're alluding to the fact that you think the Constitution grants this right to same-sex relations. I would disagree with that.
Well, it doesn't matter what I think. 5 justices of the Supreme Court today said that the Constitution does, and that's how our law works.
Make it right, though. It was justices, not gods.
No, but they're the Supreme Court.
Well, the Supreme Court has historically gotten it wrong on a number of occasions. And every time they've ruled against revealed natural law, they've proven to be wrong and have been later disgraced in some cases, and certainly people have lost respect for the justices as a result of it. Dred Scott is a very relevant example of that. But Bug v. Bell, which a lot of people forget about, happened in the 1920s, and the esteemed jurist, one of the most esteemed jurists we've ever had on the
So how do you think, Pastor, how do you think the ruling is affecting religious schools? And one other question, I'll give you a two-parter. Do you think this type of ruling will open the door to legalizing things like polygamy?
Well, I think that there's a real possibility of that. I don't know what authority you would be able to forbid that now that we've departed from the direct language of the Constitution, which had the underpinning historically of faith, and I believe the founding fathers, all of which had strong relationships with God, some very devoted Christians. So I believe that the door is open for any kind of aberrant behavior.
Well,
in fact,
I would
go
have
back to the Lawrence decision in 2002. That's exactly what Scalia predicted.
But I would point out to you, Pastor, and to answer your question, Joe, if you read the majority decision, you will see they very carefully use the word person, singular, not plural, in every single place where it would be appropriate to that. So in fact, you do have a Supreme Court ruling that does not open the door to polygamy because it says person, not persons.
Well, of course, we had a Supreme Court that had not opened the door to same-sex relations until today. So that, you know, if you go back and you read the decision written in 1992, Anthony Kennedy, in the Casey versus Planned Parenthood case, he gave us a prelude to this when he literally said our reality is whatever we define it to be. He moved from absolutes to a very changing mode of discussing reality at that point in time.
Absolutes according to who, sir?
Didn't howl at that decision.
Absolutes according to who?
I would say according to the Constitution, from a point of view of our government, but as a Christian, I would say from the foundation of God's holy word.
And isn't that where the problem comes in? Because while I respect your beliefs in that regard, in terms of what's absolute, and I do respect your beliefs, that doesn't mean that everybody else who is an American respects that same belief, and they may have other beliefs. That's why we have a Constitution.
Granted, granted.
Pastor, I was struck by a poll that I read today that says it's 70% of those that were born after 1980 actually support gay marriage. The generational shift is just remarkable. All that said, and we only have about 15 seconds, I already asked the question, do you think it's surprising? But given the momentum we've seen, are you surprised that it happened this quickly?
No, I'm not. I mean, what other version of reality have they heard in the last 20 years, whether it be sitcoms or documentaries or talking heads? I mean, that's the only side they've heard.
Well, Pastor, we appreciate you joining us. Thanks so much. More on this historic ruling coming up next. Stay tuned. And welcome back to Daily Wrap. We want to hear your thoughts on what we've been talking about tonight. What do you think about the Supreme Court's ruling? Well, go to newsmaxtv.com/comments. Let us know. Maybe we'll read a couple on the air. Okay, so we continue with this conversation. Is the conversation today outside of the escaped convict, one of them anyway, being killed near the Canadian border. Still looking for the second. We want to remind people of that. Lisa, I want to go to you on this one. As far
couple, and this is what started all of this.
In the college, the 1983.
Right, exactly.
Right.
But here's what's different. The difference between interracial couples being married, there was never a religion that I'm aware of, and you can both correct me if I'm wrong, that had a religious issue with interracial marriage. I don't know of any dogma that says that. It's very different than what we have today. So I tell you what, if the government were ever to try and force a Catholic priest or any other religious man or woman of the cloth, to marry anybody, I'll be right there on the battle lines. They can't do that. There are going to be some tricky questions.
I'm hoping that's true.
Well, I think you'll find that out, and I think, if anything, Hobby Lobby case more than shows that that's the case.
Well, here's the problem, is that the White House's own lawyers did open the door to the tax-exempt issue, saying this could be something that is litigated in the future when it comes to...
anything can be litigated.
No, the Solicitor General said, oh, yeah, you're right. Actually, it's a possibility
No.
that tax-exempt status could... That's what he said.
He
So
said it's a hard problem. That's what he said.
the Solicitor General, he opened the door to saying this could be an issue that's
Right, he
litigated
did
in
say
the
it could be an
future.
issue.
Not opening the door.
But the point being that the social shift that you're talking about, Joe, I think that the justices did reflect that, and that if we're honest, that socially, as a culture, we have redefined marriage between heterosexuals as well. That initially marriage was seen as a sort of more practical vehicle for the raising of children and the bringing together, of a man and a woman and their finances and the structure of the family. But it's been going on for a very long time between heterosexuals that marriage is for love and to make a love match.
Let me turn this to
Agree
2016,
with that.
right? With the Obamacare ruling, that, in my view, saved Republicans from having to come up with an alternative and look like the bad guys because they bought the suit. Okay, so now that's off the table, right? It's
Right.
the law of the land. It's going to stay. It's probably not going anywhere. They can't run them. We're going to repeal it and all that. It's going to be so embedded by the time 2017 comes around.
No, but for 2016, it will continue to be a great issue for the Republicans, and they're raising money like crazy.
Yeah,
yesterday.
they'll raise
Yeah.
money off of it, no
Right.
question. Now, same with this though, right? Now this is a done deal. It's all 50 states.
will be
It's
different.
done. Does social issues, as far as like, do you ask a Marco Rubio? Do you ask a Jeb Bush, a Scott Walker, John Kasich? What's your view on this? Well, it
gives
doesn't
them-
matter.
It
It's
gives
done.
them a very easy out where they can say,
out.
personally, as President Obama did, by the way, in 2008, personally, I support traditional marriage being between a man and a woman, but the Supreme Court has ruled, they have spoken, gay marriage is legal in all 50 states.
And you had some great examples today. I thought the way Jeb Bush answered it
yes,
was
he
brilliant.
did. He did give a very
and I
good
think
answer.
Remind everybody how he did that.
he basically made a speech saying he doesn't like it, it's not for him, however, and then he does the however,
But he was
right?
guided by his own faith,
Yes.
and he kind of said it's not
It was
right. It's
very
not my
smart,
personal.
and it was very well done. On the other hand, Michael Huckabee continues to pretend that he's going to defy this law because, as the pastor was saying, God's a higher being than the Supreme Court. The problem is our Constitution doesn't turn to God to interpret our laws.
I find it
Maybe they
very
should.
interesting. You call the Pope Frankie, but you
Pope
call
Frankie.
Mike Huckabee. You call
Michael.
Mike Huckabee Michael Huckabee. Interesting.
Actually, I always call him that when we're talking.
Oh, okay.
But so you can certainly understand, conservative consternation of the Democratic pandering on this issue, that President Obama back in 2008 said because of his religious convictions, he believed that marriage was between a man and a woman and was a sacrament. He opposed gay marriage, but he supported civil unions. He has done a huge turnaround on this, as has Hillary
Hillary.
Clinton.
Yeah.
But they're claiming that they were with it all along.
You're not
Yeah,
suggesting
yeah.
a politician
A
would
flip-flop.
lie to win an election, are you? Is that what
So
you're
was he lying
saying?
in 2008 or is he lying now?
I'm pretty sure he was
Okay.
lying in 2008. What do you think?
You know who?
I think I agree with that.
You know who benefits from this? The children of gay couples, because now
That's right.
it is more sound, at least for them, and they don't know any better.
Big
so.
part of Kennedy's rationale, by the way.
Right? Yeah, I saw that. All right. Does Hillary Clinton finally have some competition? Stay tuned. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders is closing in on frontrunner Hillary Clinton in the Democratic race for the White House. And this isn't some flim-flam poll we're talking about. Rick loves that word, flim-flam. According to a new CNN poll of Democratic voters conducted by the University of New Hampshire, Sanders is now only 8 points behind the former Secretary of State. He's got 35% of the vote. I honestly never thought I'd see that. And when asked a series of questions regarding their overall opinion of the senator, this is where it really gets interesting. 66% of Democratic voters have a favorable opinion of the 73-year-old. And Sanders actually beat out Mrs. Clinton in 3 key areas. Best representing Democratic values, 41-30. Caring most about people like them, 45% to 24. And honesty, with only 2% of Democratic voters finding Mr. Sanders untrustworthy.
Who are those 2%?
I got to meet them,
Yeah,
right?
really.
Not exactly your typical politician. To Mrs. Clinton's 28%. Obviously, the election is still over a year away. Rick, you're going to tell us this means nothing, but that is kind of.
I feel like I'm getting to relive my childhood when I was out there fighting the battle for Eugene McCarthy. He's going to end up doing fine in
New Hampshire. Iowa.
He's also going to do fine in Iowa, and then the party's going to be over.
South Carolina.
For better or for worse, it's going to come to an end. I love Bernie Sanders. You've heard me say it on the show. He's the most honest man in Congress.
Do you think Hillary still will play the role of just, Bernie, he's cute, or will she actually start to attack?
No, she won't attack, and she won't demean him either. She'll be respectful of him, because Hillary knows what we know, and that is that Bernie Sanders can't win the nomination to be president, and she can only hurt herself if she demeans his point of view. She's not that stupid.
Amy, does this open the door for other candidates where they say, wow, Hillary is weak, and maybe we should jump in? The problem is, I don't know outside of somebody like Mike Bloomberg who could actually have some sort of impact, unless you know of somebody.
Lincoln Chafee,
Oh,
isn't
no.
he going to bring back the metric
system?
What a great platform.
Royale with cheese, my friend.
Martin O'Malley, of course, as we know, is also eyeing jumping in the race.
fun.
I think with Bernie Sanders, what could be interesting beyond the Democratic primary is if he does well enough, could he be Ross Perot to Hillary Clinton in 2016?
He won't do it.
That he is an independent, he's a registered independent.
True.
Could he possibly run as an independent and play a spoiler for Hillary?
He's not going to.
You say he's not. I don't know if he will or not, but it's an interesting prospect.
Rick and Bernie are actually in the same homeroom, so when he says he knows, he knows of which he speaks.
That is so harsh, but I look good. Come on, admit it.
He does.
No, I tell you what, I know from sources that I think we'd all agree are pretty darn good. He doesn't want to do that. He knows what he's doing, and he's being very effective at what he's doing.
But what he could be doing also is pushing Hillary to the left, and
That's
making
what
it
he's
much more
doing.
difficult for her to then swivel
Now
back.
that's
my
And
next
that's
question.
not, that's not really a surprise, because Democrats actually, according to recent polls, there are definitely there's a definite shift to the left, where 47% of Democrats are now identifying as socially liberal, maybe moderate economically, or liberal, and that's up from 39% over the last, since 2008. So there's a definite. So this might. Hillary knows she doesn't need to do much. It might push her that she will take on some of his themes,
She will.
but she doesn't have to do. I don't think she sees him as any kind of a threat. But it just shows that the shift in terms of Democrats leaning towards the left.
And on the honesty question, it also provides a very negative contrast with Hillary Clinton. And Washington Post ABC found that the reason why her trustworthy numbers were going down was actually being driven by Democrats. The Democrats were finding her after the email scandal. It just was one thing after the next, and that
More than
their faith in her
Republicans.
trustworthiness
It can't
is going
surprise you.
down.
It can't surprise you. It
Right.
sure as heck shouldn't surprise her.
Right.
This is what happens. I don't think it's going to make a difference in her ability to win a general election, although, as you know, I don't think she's a shoo-in or anything. But of course it's going to hurt her. It should hurt her.
It really feels more and more like a toss-up. It feels like 50-50, and it's going to come down to 3 states.
General,
We can name it right here. Yep,
that's
Florida,
Same old show.
Florida, Virginia, Ohio. And
We'll all be sitting here on election night and
I hope
going
so.
through the process, and it's going to come down to those states.
right,
Exactly.
Right.
but this is where then I think it maybe even hinges a little bit towards the GOP. If it is Jeb Bush, Florida probably goes to him. He's still very popular in his state. If he has Kasich, let's say, as Ohio, very popular in his own state. So those two are there. And basically it comes down to the President of the United States of Virginia. Because if it goes that way, then that's
Amy,
the whole ballgame.
You're not a Bushy, right?
No, I'm
I
an
didn't think
independent.
so.
No.
You're an independent.
And
who are-
I'm
who
a
are you
registered,
like Sanders?
I'm a registered independent. Like so many Americans,
socialist.
we have 321 million people in this country, and we were just going back to Clinton, Bush. There's so much talent, ambition, and drive. I wish that the political pool was a little bit wider and deeper.
So who do you like?
Who do I like in the race so far? At this point, I'm waiting to hear more.
Okay.
Really?
Yes.
But you'd like somebody like the
She
president.
likes
of Florida.
Kasich, man. She's
I know
hanging
I
back
don't
on
like.
Kasich.
Do you?
Donald Trump. You're fired.
He is now number
But
2.
he'll be
in
You
many
like
polls.
Donald Trump?
No, I'm with
Oh,
you.
God.
That was going to be a high five
Okay.
on that. That's what
Let
that
me give you
All right.
10 seconds,
Fist
both
bump?
of you, since I
Fist
haven't
bump.
been able to ask you the question. Are you surprised by Trump at least being second in some polls?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Name ID, bombast, of course, but
Exactly.
he's thin-skinned. He doesn't know the issues. He's thin on the policy. When he's going to stand on that debate stage, remember his spats with Rosie O'Donnell. They were ugly.
Yeah.
If you
and
were the
therefore-
host of The Apprentice, you could be number 2 in the polls, too.
Okay, and that's our last word. Anyway, potluck time next. This is the Daily Wrap. And And welcome back to Daily Wrap. Before we jump back in, let's jump on board, shall we? Newsmax wants to send one lucky couple on a 7-day Silver Sea cruise to the Caribbean this winter. Holmes wants in.
Get in on this.
Well, let me tell you how. Obviously, Amy, a luxury cruise in the Silver Wind is the trip of a lifetime. To win, you must enter our sweepstakes. Visit newsmax.com/sweepstakes. Amy is literally writing it down right now. To enter, that's newsmax.com/sweepstakes. Oh, we said we'd read some comments on the air, by the way. We got one
Can I ask a
before. We
question?
got several. We
Do you
chose
want-
Do you
You're gonna ask
also
about
throw
cruise.
in a hot boyfriend to go on the cruise with me?
Yes, we do. And his name is Unger.
Oh!
But Rick is happily married.
Mrs.
gonna
Unger might not
say.
appreciate that, you know?
Maybe Rick's grandson.
And she watches. My
Rick's
grandson's a
grandson.
little young. He's 20 months old.
No
Both
problem.
of them.
Yeah, what do we got?
I'll see about the guy. I got some
Okay,
single
thank you.
friends that would be right up your alley, actually. Yeah.
And single.
He's just
absolutely.
kidding, dear.
Yep. No. Very,
No
very,
green card wives hiding in the closets.
very successful, very disease-free guys. They're perfect for you, believe me. Anyway, let's read the comments, shall we? It comes from WLD Wolf 68. I wonder if that was the year he was born. Interesting. The Supreme Court should have kicked back to the states and kept their noses out of it. We, the people, should have had a vote on it. This is shoving their beliefs down our throats. 4 exclamation points. I think this reading the Constitution as you see it is bull crap. Rick Unger.
May I respond to our viewer who was nice enough to comment? I'm being very serious. I want you to go pull out a copy of the Constitution. You can find it online or whatever, and I want you to actually read the 14th Amendment. It's very simple to read. You'll understand it immediately
Equal
and
protection of the law.
implicitly. And what it says is exactly what you were addressing, which is the states must go along with the Constitution, and that they should not have kicked it back to the states if, and only if, a constitutional right was involved. If equal protection was involved, if there's a constitutional right for all people to be married, then it can't be kicked back to the states, and that's what the court ruled. So it would have been wrong under the 14th Amendment for them to do that.
Listen to him, Mr. Wolf. He's pre-med. Pre-law. What's the difference? Okay. It's potluck time. This is part of the show. We go around our table and share our favorite stories of the day. Lisa Jandovitz got the whole library girl thing going. Looking tremendous, by the way. It's Friday.
It's
It's
the branding.
Friday.
The
It's Friday.
branding.
The branding.
flirt.
We
We
kinda
already
like
got
to
Amy
mix
going on
it
a
up.
cruise with a guy. She said, no. Go nuts.
Well, PBS has a series called Finding Your Roots, where they take celebrities and they look at their ancestry. And there was actually, they aired a show in last October in which Ben Affleck was the guest. Well, what they found was that Ben Affleck had a relative who was a slave owner, and Mr. Affleck did not want this divulged in the show, so he pressured the host and executive producer not to put that in the show. And the host and executive producer was trying to decide what to do. He actually conferred with Sony's CEO, who advised him, yeah, okay, you know what, you don't have to go ahead with it, but make sure that this doesn't get out because it could be kind of tricky. Now, they also found that Anderson Cooper, who had been a guest, Ken Burns, they also had slaveholders as ancestors, and that was included in the show. But as the host and executive producer, who is, and I don't have his name right here, Harry Louis Gates said, Ben Affleck is a megastar. So I guess Anderson Cooper and Ken Burns were not. So they did not put this in the show. PBS did not know about this. It was found out through the Sony email hacking. This whole email thing was discovered. PBS pulled the show in all forms of its distribution. It's on hold right now. I say kudos to them because it goes to everything in terms of ethical journalism, the integrity of PBS, for this to have been done. And you know what? If Mr. Affleck didn't want, everybody has skeletons in their closet, then he should not have been on the show. But this is something that cannot be. It totally went against everything that PBS and journalism
We're all
stands
bobbleheads
for.
right now.
Yeah.
Affleck should be embarrassed.
I
He
agree
should
with
be
that,
embarrassed.
but it's sort of it's a liberal mindset to believe that if you had some great grand relative who was a slave owner, that somehow reflects on you personally.
liberal mindset. I'm liberal,
silly-
and I wouldn't mind if they
but,
told.
No, but I'm saying that, and I've had this experience with Mr. Affleck of meeting him in person, and him, discovering that I was a conservative. I was working for Senator Frist at the time, and him telling me that I must be self-hating. That as an African American,
said that to you?
yes, as an African American woman, how could I possibly have conservative values and work for a
Did you
Republican?
say I'm not self-hating, but I'm not crazy about
And
you.
I suggested to him that your politics are not genetically encoded. Clearly, he believes they are because he wanted to hide about his own
wanted to-
I have
relative.
no idea. I mean, I was rooting against him
Wow.
before as
Now
Batman.
you're really gonna- what an
because
idiot.
he's going to destroy that
I've
franchise.
actually never told that story publicly, but there you go.
That's
Wow.
great.
By the way, you have to love the irony of the CEO of Sony thinking you can keep anything
That
quiet.
you can keep it quiet. But one other thing is that
Great point.
the host of this show, and the executive producer said when he issued an apology recently, said, "My whole career has been on improving race relations and starting a this would have been an opportunity to do that for Ben Affleck."
He's an
then.
idiot. You're right. I mean,
Ben
just
Affleck,
because
yes.
his grandfather, whatever,
What does
was
that
some-
mean?
what's
It's
it got to do with him?
It has
Exactly.
nothing
This
to do
shows
with
you
it.
Mitt Romney was right about PBS. Shouldn't get tax dollars. You don't deserve it. Okay. Anyway, when we come back, it's yay or nay time, happy time. Stay right there. Do not go anywhere. That music is brilliant, isn't it? Welcome back to the Daily Wrap. It's happy time. It's time for yay or nay. First up, the California House has passed a proposal that will ban personal religious beliefs from exempting children from getting, get this, vaccinated in school. Proponents of the bill argue that it would allow for medical exemptions in cases such as this year's measles outbreak in Disneyland, while opponents say the bill removes parents' rights. The bill passed the Senate in May and now awaits Governor Jerry Brown's signature. Rick will be playing golf with Mr. Brown this weekend. Is this a good or you're from California? Are you surprised?
It is a good idea because the key word is school. If parents don't want to vaccinate their kids, I think they're free to make that decision, but keep them away from other kids because they're going to pass it along.
Tricky one here, Amy. As a parent, I don't know what to think.
Well, you know, when this case first came up in California, my college roommate, her child attends a school, her 6-year-old son, where there's a child with leukemia. And that father told the other parents, I really need you to vaccinate your children because if your kids catch the flu or chickenpox or whatever it may be, my child could die.
Okay.
So there are, real life consequences. I understand a matter of conscience and parental rights, but other parents have rights too, and they have a right for their children to have a healthy, safe environment.
Okay, I'm back off the
Nicely
fence. It
put.
should be mandatory. I'm totally
Nicely
on board.
put.
You convinced me completely. Please.
Absolutely. As a parent, I can't see that this just affects too many people that would be at risk and absolutely should be mandated, particularly for schools.
Okay, we are an echo chamber tonight, all agreeing in our little bouncy heads. Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal may have publicly announced he was running for president on Wednesday, but he also had to break the news to his family. Luckily, he secretly recorded the conversation via a tree cam, whatever that is. Let's take a look.
So, Mom and Dad have been thinking and talking a lot about this. We have decided we are going to be running for president. That's good.
Wow, a tree cam.
Okay,
that
that's
is bizarre.
creepy.
Yeah. Let's change the question around. Okay, that was real footage, by the way. Many Americans were confused by Jindal's decision to run, given his falling approval rating, something like 31% in Louisiana. And it seems as though his family feels the same way. Is this the most awkward family moment ever, Rick Unger?
I'm going to exercise my prerogative that I occasionally do. I don't care.
Okay, apathy rules the day. Holmes?
It's not a footage that I would broadcast of my family sitting around looking at me, bewildered, quizzical. Why are you doing this, Dad? I don't get it.
By the way, he
Did
did not
release
discuss it
that?
with the kids.
Was he the one that released
Yes,
that?
it was on BobbyJindal.com.
Is that right?
Yeah, I don't think
I don't know how
I
else
would have
anybody else
released
would have
that.
it.
No,
if
he
it
needs
was-
to fire
if my-
his campaign. He needs to fire his communications
If my
director.
family looked like that when I said I was running, I wouldn't want that out publicly.
Yeah.
That was dumb.
I think we can all agree that he will not be getting the nomination or even his family's votes for that matter.
Right,
I mean,
but
that
maybe
was
he
just-
can run as president of the Peeping Tom Club.
Actually, it's
Yeah.
perfect for the man who read us a bedtime story after the State of the Union. I think it fits completely.
Camera in a tree. What's next? Like a server in your house? The Senate is falling apart. Not the building or the institution itself, but just some of the senators. It's no surprise that many of us, or our elected officials, I should say, are pretty up there in age, but a number of them have come out lately with some pretty major health announcements. First, we had 75-year-old Harry Reid, who announced his retirement earlier this year. He's permanently blind in one eye following an accident on New Year's Day. Next, 70-year-old senator from Georgia, his name's Johnny Isaacson. Sorry, I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Isaacson, excuse me. Who announced just 2 weeks ago that his Parkinson's disease has been impacting his mobility, but he still plans to run for a third Senate term next year. Finally, we have 68-year-old Maine Senator Angus King, who's supposed to have had his prostate removed today, but plans to return to work and even to run again in 2018. Time for some younger blood in the Senate. Rick Unger.
Oh, I mean, better
Rick
blood,
Unger.
but
Younger.
better,
Rick
younger,
Unger.
better blood. But you know, these things happen to people. You do have to admit one thing: if Harry Reid had worn those Blues Brothers glasses from the start, we'd all feel differently about him.
Yeah, he looks very Capote-ish.
He looks cool.
Yeah, I wouldn't say 68 is old. Is it old?
No,
Rick? Is
I wouldn't
68
know
No.
exactly, but no, I don't think it is.
Unger rhymes with younger.
yeah.
Remember that.
Right. I don't have a problem with old men and women in the United States Senate. You know, with age comes wisdom. My problem is that so many of them are, it seems almost all of them are multimillionaires.
Okay,
You have to be a
that's
millionaire
true.
to be in
We
the
got to
Senate.
go, unfortunately. Lisa, you're a yay and a.
I'm going to say no. I
Okay,
don't think
thank
the
you,
age-
panel. We got to go. Sorry about that. Newsmax Prime with J.D. Hayworth. That's next.